In the next 15 minutes, you're going to experience something most people never survive: being hunted. First, you'll be 17-year-old Cindy Paulson, handcuffed in a car at a remote Alaskan airfield, watching a man load a plane that you know, with absolute certainty, will be your death. You'll have seconds to make a choice. Then, you'll become the detective who has to decide. Do you believe her? A teenage prostitute with a story so horrific it sounds impossible. By the end, you'll know two things: whether you would have escaped and whether you would have believed the person who did. June 13th, 1983. Anchorage, Alaska. A city booming with pipeline workers, cash, and vice. A 17-year-old girl is picked up on 5th Avenue, and 12 hours later, she's running barefoot, handcuffed, down an airport runway, screaming for her life. The man chasing her? A respected local baker. A family man. Someone the police had investigated and cleared multiple times before. This case will test two things: your survival instinct when every option is death, and your ability to see past prejudice when the truth is standing right in front of you. Most people fail at least one. Some fail both. What police found in Robert Hansen's home didn't just solve one murder. It revealed 17, maybe more. A map with dozens of X marks. A trophy collection. And a hunting ground so vast that bodies are still missing 40 years later. But none of that would have been discovered if Cindy Paulson hadn't done something nearly impossible. She escaped. This is a case about who we believe and why. About how the wrong kind of victim can tell the absolute truth and still not be heard. You're 17. It's June 13th, 1983, and Anchorage doesn't get dark this time of year. The sun just kind of circles the horizon, casting everything in this strange golden light that makes the city feel suspended in time. You're on 5th Avenue, downtown, where the pipeline money has created a whole ecosystem. Construction workers with cash, bars that stay open late, and women like you, trying to survive in whatever way you can. You've been working the streets for your pimp for 5 years now. Since you were 12. That's not a detail meant to shock you. It's just the reality. You ran away from an abusive home, met someone who seemed like he cared, and by 15, you were his main lady. The semantics don't matter. What matters is this: you've developed instincts. You can read a John in seconds. You know who's dangerous and who's just sad. You know the difference between a man who might hurt you and a man who definitely will. A car pulls up. Light-colored sedan, older model. The driver leans over, rolls down the passenger window. You look at him. Small guy, maybe mid-40s, glasses, kind of scrawny. He's got a stutter when he talks. Asks if you're working. Offers $200 for oral sex. $200 is a lot. More than most guys offer. You think about that $200. Your pimp takes most of what you earn, but $200 might mean a day off. Might mean decent food instead of whatever you can scrape together. You're exhausted. You've been out here since early afternoon, and Anchorage in June means 18 hours of daylight, 18 hours of working. You're smart. Street smart, survival smart. You've stayed alive this long by trusting your instincts. And this guy? He doesn't look dangerous. He looks nervous, awkward. The kind who probably gets rejected by women all the time. The kind who has to pay for it. That assessment isn't wrong, by the way. He is all those things. He is also one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. But you don't know that yet. You get in. The interior smells like bread. Flour dust on the dashboard. There's something about that smell. It's domestic, safe, normal. It's not the smell of danger. He pulls away from the curb, and you're negotiating price, discussing where to go. He suggests his place. That's not unusual. Some guys don't want to use their car. Some have wives, need privacy. You've been to clients' homes before. But then you notice, he's not driving toward any residential area you recognize. He's heading out of downtown, toward the outskirts. You shift in your seat. Ask where he's taking you. He says his house, says it's not far. His stutter gets worse when you question him. He seems nervous, excited. You can't quite read it. And then, almost casually, he reaches into the space between the seats. When his hand comes back up, he's holding a .357 Magnum. Don't scream, he says. The stutter's completely gone now. Put these on. He hands you handcuffs. Real handcuffs. Police grade. Our brain does something strange in this moment. It fractures. Part of you is terrified, adrenaline spiking, heart pounding so hard you can hear it in your ears. But another part of you, the survival part, the part that's kept you alive on these streets, goes very, very calm. You put on the handcuffs. This isn't compliance. This is strategy. You need time to think, to look for an opening. Fighting now, in a moving car, with him holding a gun, that's how you die fast. So you make yourself small. You make yourself cooperative. You tell him you'll do whatever he wants, just don't hurt you. I won't hurt you if you cooperate, he says. I just want to have some fun. Fun. That word will replay in your mind for years. He drives you to a house in Muldoon, a residential neighborhood. Middle class. Quiet. Safe looking. The kind of place where a family man might live. Which, you'll later learn, is exactly what he is. Married, 2 kids, owns a bakery downtown. The cognitive dissonance is disorienting. Serial killers don't look like this. They don't live in places like this. He pulls into the driveway. The gun is still pointed at you. Here's your first real choice. When he tells you to get out of the car, do you run? Scream? Try to fight? Think about what you'd actually do. Not what you hope you'd do, what your body would do. You're handcuffed. He has a gun. You're in a residential neighborhood, but it's late. No one's outside. If you run, he can shoot you. If you scream, will anyone hear? Will anyone care? You make the same choice most people would. You don't run. You get out of the car. You walk into his house. This isn't weakness. This is the horrible math of survival. Maybe if you cooperate, he'll let you go. Maybe this is just about sex and control. Maybe you can get through this. You're wrong. But you don't know that yet. Inside, the house looks normal. Family photos on the walls. Kids' toys. A lived-in kitchen. And then he takes you downstairs, to the basement. There's a pole. A support beam. He chains you to it by your neck with a rope. For time's around. He handcuffs you so you can barely move. And then he rapes you. Multiple times. For hours. You're on your period. You tell him this, thinking it might stop him. It doesn't. You try to talk to him, to humanize yourself. You tell him your name. You ask his name. He says it's Bob. He keeps saying the same thing. If you cooperate, I won't hurt you. If you calm down, you'll be okay. You're trying to read him. Is he telling the truth? If you cooperate, will he really let you go? Or is cooperation just delaying the inevitable? This is the impossible calculus of sexual violence. How do you survive when you can't tell if compliance saves you or just makes the end slower? After what feels like forever, it's actually about 5 hours, he unchains you. He says he's going to take you back to town. You want to believe him, but he doesn't drive you back to Fifth Avenue. He drives you to Merrill Field, a small airport. He parks next to a small plane, a bush plane, the kind you use to fly into the Alaska wilderness. And that's when you understand. He never planned to let you go. He's going to fly you somewhere remote, somewhere no one will ever find you. You have minutes, maybe seconds, to figure out how to survive this. It's around 5 a.m. The sun's been up for hours. This is Alaska in June. The airport is quiet, but not deserted. This is important. He chose this moment carefully. Early enough that most people aren't around, but not so late that the airport is completely empty. He needs to look normal. He parks near his plane. You're still handcuffed in the back seat. He opens the door, tells you to stay put, threatens you again. If you run, he'll kill you. He's holding the gun where you can see it. Then he walks around to the plane to start loading it. This is your moment. This is your opening. Your mind is moving faster than it ever has. You know, with absolute certainty, that if you get on that plane, you die. Everything in your body is screaming this truth. Once you're in the wilderness, there's no escape, no witnesses, no chance. So you make a decision that seems impossible. You're going to run. Handcuffed. No shoes. They're still in his car from earlier. With a man who has a gun prepared to chase you. You slide across the seat, push open the driver's side door, and run. Your feet hit gravel. You're barefoot. The ground tears at your skin, but you don't feel it. You're running faster than you've ever run, handcuffs cutting into your wrists, arms pumping awkwardly, Because they're cuffed in front of you. You hear him yelling behind you. Stop. Get back here. You don't stop. You're running toward the perimeter of the airport, toward the road. If you can just get to the road, to a car, to another human being. There's a truck. A pickup truck. Just pulling away from a stop sign on the access road. You run directly into the road. Into its path. Waving your handcuffed arms, screaming. The driver, a man named Robert Yount, sees you. Barefoot teenager, handcuffed, hysterical, blood on your feet from running on gravel. He stops. Here's what you do next, and this is important. You don't ask him to take you to the police. You ask him to take you to the motel where your boyfriend, your pimp, is staying. Why? Because you're 17, you're a sex worker, you've just been brutally assaulted and held captive for 12 hours. You know what happens when girls like you go to the police. You know they don't believe you. You know they look at you like you're the problem. So you go to the only safety you know, your pimp. Your normal. Your world. Behind you, Hansen sees the truck stop. Sees you get in. He doesn't chase you into the road. He can't. Too many potential witnesses now. Instead, he gets back in his car and drives away. Fast. The truck driver, Robert Yount, takes you to the motel. He sees you're still handcuffed. He sees the terror in your eyes. And even though you don't ask for it, he goes to the police after dropping you off. This man's choice to believe what he saw and report it. This is the thread that will eventually unravel everything. What you don't know yet, you're not his first victim. You're not even close. For 12 years, Robert Hansen has been doing this. The exact pattern varies, but the core is always the same. Pick up a woman, usually a sex worker or dancer. Hold her captive. Rape her. And then, for the ones who fight back, the ones who don't cooperate the way he wants, he flies them into the wilderness. He lets them run. And then he hunts them like animals. With a rifle and a hunting knife. At least 17 women have died this way. Maybe more. The wilderness north of Anchorage is vast. Remote. Bodies don't get found unless someone knows exactly where to look. And Hansen knows exactly where they are. Because he marked every single one on a map. The Anchorage police show up at the mush in about 2 hours after Robert Yount's call. They find you in room 110. Still handcuffed. Still terrified. You tell them everything. Every detail. The car, the house in Muldoon, the basement, the chains, the rape, the airport, the plane. You describe the man. Small, glasses, stutter, drove a light-colored sedan. You tell them you left your shoes in his car as evidence. You even tell them which plane is his. You saw the tail number. The officer writes it all down. And then, this is the part that almost ruins everything. He doesn't believe you. Not entirely, anyway. He thinks maybe you got into a situation with a client that went bad. Maybe you're exaggerating. Maybe you're on drugs. You look like you might be on drugs, shaky and terrified and barely coherent. Maybe this is a shakedown. You're 17. You're a known prostitute. You have a record. And your story sounds impossible. A seemingly normal guy, a baker, flying women into the wilderness to hunt them? It sounds like a horror movie. But you give them enough details that they have to investigate. They check the plane registration. It belongs to Robert Hansen. Local business owner. Married. Kids. No serious record. Just some petty theft stuff years ago, and one attempted rape charge that got pled down. They bring him in for questioning. Hansen is calm. Almost amused. He admits he knows you. Says you approached him for money. Tried to extort him. Says you're lying about everything else. Says he was home all night with his family. His friend, a guy named John Henning, provides an alibi. Says Hansen was with him that night. Couldn't possibly have been at Merrill Field at 5 a.m. The police have a choice. Believe the hysterical teenage prostitute or believe the respectable baker with an alibi. They choose the baker. The case goes cold. You're released. You leave Anchorage, go to Portland, actually, to get away from your pimp, to start over. You'll be arrested there on prostitution charges about a week later, which will make the Anchorage police even less likely to pursue your case. If you're still working, still using, maybe your story really was just an exaggeration. But something bothers Detective Glenn Flo of the Alaska State Troopers. He's been investigating a series of murders, women found in the wilderness, all showing similar patterns. Bodies discovered along the Nick River, in shallow graves, shot and stabbed. And your story, if it's true, fits the pattern. The shoes you left in Hansen's car, your sneakers, right there under the passenger seat where you kicked them off, police photographed them during the initial investigation. They're in evidence, but nobody thought they were important enough to use to get a warrant. Just a pair of sneakers. Proof you'd been in the car, sure. But proof of what? A sex work transaction gone wrong. Those shoes won't matter for months. But when they do matter, they'll be crucial. Pause here if you want to. You know what Cindy told police. You know Hansen denied it. You know he has an alibi. What would you investigate next? The alibi? Hansen's background? His plane? Drop your strategy in the comments. Because what Detective Flo chose to investigate is what eventually broke this case wide open, but it took 4 months to get there. The investigation. You're no longer Cindy Paulson. You're Detective Sergeant Glenn Flo, the Alaska State Troopers. 12 years on the force. You've worked homicides before, but nothing like this. You've got a serial killer working your state. You're sure of it. Bodies keep turning up in the wilderness. Women, mostly sex workers and dancers, shot execution style. Some have been out there for years before discovery. Some are so decomposed you can barely get an ID. And then this Paulson girl comes forward with a story that, if true, describes exactly how these women are ending up dead. But her case got closed. The Anchorage PD didn't believe her. And you're not entirely sure you do either. Except for one thing. The details match. The pattern matches. And you've learned to trust patterns more than you trust people. Here's what you have. Victim 1. Eklutna Annie. Found July 1980. Still unidentified. Stabbed in the back. Buried in a shallow grave near Eklutna Lake. Victim 2. Joanna Messina, 24. Found in a gravel pit near Seward, 1980. Shot. Victim 3. Sherry Morrow, 23. Found in a shallow grave near the Nick River, 1982. Shot multiple times. Victim 4. Paula Golding, 30. Found September 1983 near the Nick River. Shot in the back with a .223 rifle. The pattern is clear. They're all found in remote wilderness areas. All shot. All women from Anchorage's sex work or exotic dancing scene. Women who could disappear without raising immediate alarm. The problem? You have almost no forensic evidence. The bodies are too decomposed. No witnesses. No clear suspects. Until Cindy Paulson's escape in June 1983. She's your first surviving victim. Your first eyewitness. Your first break. But she's also a credibility nightmare. Teenage prostitute, drug user, fled the state, got arrested in Portland. You have 3 investigative paths. Path 1. Go hard at Hansen directly. Interview him again. Push him, see if he cracks. But you have no new evidence, and his lawyer will shut that down fast. Path 2. Investigate his alibi. His friend John Henning says Hansen was with him the night Paulson was taken. But what if Henning is lying? Path 3. Contact the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit. Get a psychological profile of your killer. See if Hansen fits it. Which would you choose? October 1983. Flo sends case files to the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. Special Agent John Douglas, the guy who basically invented criminal profiling, reviews everything. Douglas creates a profile. The killer, he says, will be an experienced hunter with low self-esteem. History of being rejected by women. Likely has a stutter or speech impediment. Will keep souvenirs from victims, jewelry, personal items. Probably has a wife who's religious and unaware of his activities. Lives in the area, knows the wilderness intimately. Has access to a plane or remote cabin. When Flo reads this profile, his blood runs cold. It describes Robert Hansen almost perfectly. But here's the problem. A psychological profile isn't evidence. It's not enough for a warrant. You need physical evidence. And Hansen's alibi still stands. John Henning swears Hansen was with him. Flo makes a choice. He brings in Henning's friend, another guy who was supposedly with them that night. Threatens him with charges if he's lying. The friend cracks immediately. Admits they weren't with Hansen. They lied because Hansen asked them to, and he's their buddy. They didn't think it was a big deal. The alibi collapses. Now flow the has. Cindy Paulson's testimony. The FBI profile that matches Hansen and a broken alibi. He goes to Judge Victor Carlson with a 48-page affidavit. Gets 8 search warrants. Hansen's home, his car, his plane, his cabin. October 27, 1983. They execute the search. Remember those sneakers Cindy left in Hansen's car? When police search the car, they're still there. Right where she said they'd be. Exactly as she described. Small detail, but it's the first piece of physical evidence that corroborates her entire story. She was in that car. She was telling the truth. But what they find in the house is what changes everything. In Hansen's attic, hidden in a corner, they find jewelry. Lots of it. Necklaces, rings, items that don't belong to Hansen's wife. When they cross-reference with missing persons reports, several pieces match women who disappeared. An aviation map, folded up behind the headboard of Hansen's bed, with 37 red X marks on it. 24 of those X marks correspond to known body recovery sites. The rest? Unknown locations. Potential graves no one has found yet. A .223 caliber Ruger Mini 14 rifle. Ballistics will later match it to bullets found in at least 4 victims. This isn't just evidence of one crime. This is evidence of a systematic killing spree lasting over a decade. Hansen didn't just murder women. He collected trophies, marked their graves, and kept a record. Confronted with the evidence, Hansen does what a lot of killers do. He tries to minimize. Says the jewelry belonged to women he knew. Says the map is for hunting. Says the gun is legal. He's a hunter. But prosecutors have a strategy. They tell Hansen their plan. When spring comes and the snow melts, they're going to take tracking dogs to every single X on that map. They're going to find every body. Match every bullet to his rifle. Build a case so overwhelming that he'll die in prison.
His face got really red, and, literally, the hair on the back of his neck stood up. And that was when he changed, to my eye, from Bob the Baker to Bob the serial killer. And all of a sudden I'm looking at this guy, thinking, there's the guy who killed all those people.
Assistant DA Frank Rothschild describes what happens next. Hansen confesses to everything. 17 murders, 30 rapes, 12 years of hunting women in the Alaska wilderness. February 1984. Robert Hansen pleads guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of kidnapping and rape, Cindy Paulson's case. The plea bargain spares him the death penalty. Alaska doesn't have one anyway, but guarantees he'll never see freedom again. Sentenced to 461 years plus life without parole. He agrees to show investigators where he buried the other victims. They recover 12 bodies total. 5 remain missing to this day. He took the locations of those final graves to his death in 2014. But here's the thing. None of this would have happened if Cindy Paulson hadn't escaped. And none of this would have been investigated if Detective Flotha hadn't chosen to believe her, even when everyone else thought she was lying. So now you know what happened. The escape, the investigation, the confession, 17 confirmed victims, possibly more. But the more important questions are, why did Hansen do this? What made Cindy's escape possible when 17 other women didn't make it? And what does this case teach us about who we believe and why that matters? Robert Hansen was born in 1939 in Iowa. His father was a Danish immigrant who ran a bakery and expected perfection. Hansen worked brutal hours in that bakery from childhood. He was small, had severe acne that left his face pockmarked, and developed a stutter that got worse under stress. He was bullied relentlessly. The popular kids, especially girls, mocked him. He became the target of every cruel joke about looks, about masculinity, about worthlessness. This created what psychologists call a shame-rage cycle. Hansen felt profound shame about his appearance and social status. That shame transformed into rage, specifically at women who rejected him. And that rage needed an outlet. He found it in hunting. As a teenager, Hansen spent hours alone in the woods. Hunting became his escape, his power, his control. He got extremely good at it. Set records. Became known for his skill. After he moved to Alaska and opened his bakery, he finally achieved some of what he'd craved: respectability, a wife, children, community standing. But the rage never went away. It intensified. Forensic psychologists who evaluated him described his crimes as a literalization of revenge fantasy. He targeted sex workers and dancers, women he saw as rejecting men like him professionally. Women who, in his mind, represented every girl who'd ever mocked him. But here's the key. Hansen didn't just want to kill them. He wanted to dominate them completely. The hunting, releasing them in the wilderness, giving them hope of escape, then tracking them down. That was the point. He was reversing the power dynamic of his entire life. In the woods, he wasn't the victim. He was the predator, and they were the prey. Victim psychology and survival lessons. What made Cindy Paulson survive when 17 other women didn't? Two things. First, she escaped before he got her into the wilderness. Once you're on that plane, in that remote cabin, miles from anyone, your chances drop to nearly zero. Cindy recognized the moment at the airport as her last chance, and she took it, despite the risk. Second, someone believed what he saw. Robert Yount, the truck driver who picked her up, could have assumed she was on drugs, having a breakdown, making things up. Instead, he went to the police. That belief, that willingness to see past surface judgments, saved her life and stopped a serial killer. But let's be honest, Cindy also got lucky. Lucky that Hansen got distracted loading the plane. Lucky that a truck happened to drive by at exactly that moment. Lucky that the driver stopped. Survival often comes down to a combination of smart choices and random chance. The lesson isn't that you can control everything. It's that you have to take the chance when it appears, even if success isn't guaranteed. Detective Flotha made a choice that went against every bias in law enforcement. He believed a teenage prostitute over a respected businessman. Why? Because he trusted patterns more than he trusted social status. The evidence pattern matched Cindy's story. The victim profile matched the women dying in the wilderness. The psychological profile matched Hansen's background. Flotha had to overcome what criminologists call victim credibility bias, the tendency to disbelieve witnesses based on their social status rather than their evidence. Sex workers, drug users, runaways. These are the populations serial killers target specifically because police often don't investigate their disappearances aggressively. Hansen knew this. He chose vulnerable victims deliberately. Women whose disappearances wouldn't trigger massive searches. Women whose testimony, if they survived, wouldn't be automatically believed. The investigative lesson here is uncomfortable but crucial. Credibility should be based on evidence corroboration, not social status. Flotha checked Cindy's story against physical evidence, witness testimony, and crime patterns. When everything matched, he believed her, even when it was easier not to. This case reveals something fundamental about how we assess danger and truth. Hansen looked safe. He was small, stuttered, seemed nervous around women. He ran a bakery. He had a family. He went to church. Every social marker said harmless. And that's exactly why he was dangerous. Predators don't announce themselves. They camouflage. Hansen spent his entire life learning to blend in, to seem unthreatening. His physical appearance, the thing that caused him so much shame, became his greatest weapon. Nobody suspected the awkward baker. The women he picked up saw what we all would have seen, someone non-threatening, someone who didn't match our mental image of a killer. And when Cindy tried to tell people what happened, they saw what society has been conditioned to see: an unreliable narrator, a drug user, a sex worker, someone whose word doesn't count. The uncomfortable truth is that Hansen succeeded for 12 years not because he was brilliant, but because he understood our biases better than we do. He knew who looked dangerous to us, and made sure he didn't look that way. He knew who we wouldn't believe, and made sure to target them. This is what Cindy Paulson has spent her adult life teaching. The most dangerous people often look the least dangerous. And the people we dismiss as not credible might be telling us truths we desperately need to hear. So, would you have survived? If you said, "I would have run at the airport," maybe you would have. But remember, you'd be handcuffed, barefoot, with a man holding a gun just meters away. Running took incredible courage and split-second timing. Most people freeze in those situations. Not because they're weak, because they're human. Could you have solved it as a detective? If you said believe the victim and investigate her story, you would have done better than the Anchorage PD did initially. But be honest, would you really have believed a teenage prostitute over a baker with an alibi? Or would your biases have made you skeptical? There's no shame in acknowledging that these biases exist. The shame is in not recognizing them when they matter most. The real lesson here isn't about Robert Hansen. It's about the Cindy Paulsons of the world, the people who tell inconvenient truths, who survive impossible situations, who deserve to be believed even when everything about them makes us want to dismiss their testimony. Because the next time someone tells you something that sounds impossible, the question isn't, does this person look credible? The question is, does the evidence support what they're saying? That distinction saves lives. If this case changed how you think about credibility, or if you caught that detail about the sneakers being left in Hansen's car and realized it would become important, let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and the conversations that happen here often reveal insights I missed. Also, I mentioned 3 embedded details in the first 4 minutes that became crucial later. If you caught them before I explained their significance, drop a detective emoji. Let's see how many of you have that investigative eye. This channel exists because understanding the psychology of crime makes us sharper, not more paranoid. Every case asks, could you survive? Could you solve it? Sometimes the answer is uncomfortable. Sometimes it forces us to confront our own biases. But that discomfort, that's where real understanding begins. We love having you here. Join our growing community by hitting subscribe right now. If you know someone who'd enjoy this content, share this video with them. And don't forget to like and leave a comment. We appreciate every single one.